Welcome to Candlelit Stories. Black eyes stare, unseeing cold, a vacant gaze, a story untold. Children of the night they seem, whispering names in a chilling dream. They tap at panes with fingers pale, their voices soft, a mournful wail. They ask to enter, a haunting plea. You hesitate, you want to flee. Some say they're lost souls, forever bound to wander the earth, cursed and unsound. Others whisper of darker things, of bargains made on evil wings. So heed their call, if you dare to hear, for in their gaze a shadow draws near. Slowly they enter, your fate is sealed. Welcome back. This is episode 6 of Candlelit Stories. Tonight's story is written by Diane. It's called A Knock at the Door. Please sit back, relax, and let's begin. Sandra walked down the dark street, the light from the lamppost giving her shadow an elongated effect. She drew her coat closer around her against the night's chill. She hated working nights, but the pay differential at the bar was something that couldn't be ignored. She worked their weekends as a bartender to help her pay for nursing school. She kept her head down, but glanced up periodically to check her surroundings. She lived in a quiet suburb where crime wasn't rampant, but one could never be too safe. Her little ranch house was just around the corner, and soon she would be wrapped up in a blanket on the couch, getting lost in some reality TV show. The thought made her smile, and she quickened her pace. A laugh in the darkness made her look up. At the end of the street to her left stood 2 children. Sandra could barely make them out in the darkness, but they stood stock still, watching her. One was a little taller than the other, and they grasped hands. Sandra's brow furrowed. She checked her watch as she picked up her pace. It was nearly 3 a.m. Why were 2 kids out alone this time of night? Most likely they were up to no good, and she didn't want any parts of that. Maybe it was just her paranoia, but they seemed off somehow. She saw them out of the corner of her eye, continued to watch her as she turned into the street she lived on. Sandra breathed a sigh of relief as she closed her front door behind her and locked it. She was home. She called out to her husband before remembering that he was away on business. John was in pharmaceuticals, and he traveled all over selling drugs to different doctors. They had met at a conference 2 years ago, and the rest had been history. She had never been afraid to stay by herself like some women were. The quiet of her little house soothed her like a warm cup of tea. She changed into her PJs and was settling herself down on the couch when the knock on her door came. Sandra glanced up and stared into the dark hallway, listening. The house was old and was always making strange creaks and groans. The refrigerator alone made strange popping and hissing noises. When she didn't hear anything else, she grabbed the remote and turned to the TV. Knock, knock, knock. Sandra rolled her eyes and threw her blanket off. She was tired and just wanted to doze off on the couch. But being the responsible person she was, she couldn't discard the noise again, and it clearly sounded like it was coming from her front door. But who would be knocking at this time in the morning? She padded down the hall and over to the door. 2 long frosted window panes were on either side of her front door, and Sandra squinted through them to see if she could make out who it was. What she saw were 2 small, blurry beings. She sighed and pulled the door open, cursing herself for not getting a door with a peephole. She drew in a gasp and took a step back. What stood before her were 2 children, a boy and a girl. The girl had 2 long braids that were almost to her waist, and the boy's sneakers were worn and faded. They were holding hands and dressed in hoodies and jeans. The hoods covered their faces, and they looked down at the ground, ignoring her. Something about them seemed familiar, yet incredibly odd. "Hello?" she called in a wavering voice. Neither of them looked up, but they moved their joined hands ever so slightly. "May we come in?" the boy asked. "It is late, and we need to use your phone to call our parents." Sandra stared at them, wondering what kind of parents let their children walk around this early in the morning. She suddenly remembered something: the two kids she passed when she was walking home. She was fairly certain that these were them. Did they follow her? Was this some kind of setup? Were they going to rob her? No, Sandra said, and started to shut the door. "No, I don't think so. I'll call someone for you. Just give me the number." "Please?" The cry was sharp and forceful from the boy, and Sandra froze. She should just close the door and call 911. She knew she should do that, yet she felt like she could reason with them. "Please," he said again. "It's late, and my sister is scared." There was a long pause, and Sandra turned towards the girl. After a second, she began to cry. Her small shoulders shook. Yet Sandra was certain that she didn't see any tears fall to the ground. What the hell was this? No, I'm sorry. I'll call someone for you, Sandra said, and was about to slam the door. "Wait!" the boy cried, and lifted his face. Sandra let out a scream and stumbled back a few inches. His eyes were black obsidian pools. No irises, no pupils, just darkness. "Please," he said again. Sandra felt herself staring into those eyes, unable to move. She was horrified, but couldn't look away. They were hypnotic. She felt as if time began to slip away. "We cannot come in unless we are invited," he said. The sound of his voice shook her from the trance. Something about his words brought her back to her senses. Close the door, she thought. Just close the door. "Let us in, Sandra," the boy said in a strange, hollow hiss. It was as if she was paralyzed, a dark wave of fear rising inside of her. The boy took a step forward. "Let us in. We've come for you." "No!" Sandra screamed, breaking free of the trance just long enough to slam the door. She locked the deadbolt and stepped away. What did he mean that they had come to collect her? Who were they? What were they? She could still see them out there. Nothing separated them besides a metal door. "Go away!" she screamed at them. "I'm calling the cops!" She ran into her living room and was just about to reach for her phone when, with a loud pop, the power went out. She was engulfed in darkness. She gasped and looked around her little house, the house she had loved so much, the house that had brought her peace and comfort. It had lost all of its warmth, but she was depending on it to keep her safe. She mentally went over all windows and doors, and knew she had them all locked. No one could get into this house. No one human, that was. His eyes terrified her in a way she had never felt before. She was pretty sure that whatever they were not human, and meant her harm. She reached around in the darkness for her cell phone, stubbing her toe on a coffee table. Her hand brushed over the smooth, flat phone, and she picked it up. Her battery was at 60%, and that was more than enough to call 911. She pulled up her phone and dialed. The phone on the other end began ringing, but no one answered. She tried over and over, but to no avail. With the cell phone towers down, she clicked on the internet and tried to pull up her email. Nothing would connect. She was all alone, stranded in a dark house, with these strange creatures outside trying to come in and get her. And then the knock on the door came again. Her heart beat frantically. Her fear threatened to consume her. Knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks. Why was it 3 knocks? In every single horror movie she had ever watched, it was 3 knocks, the mockery of the Holy Trinity. Evil was behind those eyes, behind these children. She was sure of it. She found herself walking back toward the front door, not entirely sure why. She supposed that if she could see them out there, she knew they weren't trying to force one of her windows open. "I'm not letting you in," she said with a shaky voice. I'm not going to, so you might as well just leave." "Please let us in so we can call our parents." It was the boy again. "You can't call," Sandra replied. "Nothing works. No power, no phone, no nothing." There was a silence, and Sandra could see the two blurry children through her frosted window turn towards each other. "Please let us in," it was the little girl this time. Her voice was soft and sweet like a lullaby, slowly easing Sandra's fears. Why not let them in? They're only children. Sandra, unlocking the door, turned the handle, and the door opened. You never can tell who comes calling at your door. The world is a strange place, and there are things that will harm you if they have a chance. So next time someone comes knocking, think before you answer. Thank you for listening to Candlelit Stories. We really appreciate your patronage. We really have fun doing this podcast. We are very happy to see people enjoying the content. We will see you all next time, so until then remember, keep a candle burning.